Ketchum, and you're listening to Silph Radio.
This is Silph Radio, the adult comedy podcast for Pokemon-centered discussion of all shapes and sizes. Every episode of Silph Radio, we pick a different corner of the Pokemon universe, whether that be a specific species, a specific character, a specific place, a specific game that's always focused on the greatest franchise of all time. It is actually the number one, highest grossing franchise of all time. Eat a dick, Star Wars. I actually like Star Wars, even if it has been taken over by SJWs, or so YouTube tells me. Here on Silph Radio, myself, your host, Nathan Capisser, sits down with a different guest host every episode to discuss these particular corners of the Pokemon universe and give them way more attention than they usually deserve. We crack jokes, but at the end of the day, we're really seriously trying to take a real, informative, and curious and imaginative look at the building blocks that make up yours and my favorite franchise. Today, I could not be more excited to welcome back another classic Silph Radio host returning for the first time in God knows how long. My good friend, my longtime buddy and pal, and Silph Radio pioneer, all the way from episode 1. Please welcome back Mr. Phil Cobb.
It's good to be back, sir.
It's good to have you back. How you been?
I have been quite fine.
What's new with you in you? That's my Pokemon world. What's new with you with Pokemon?
Not a whole lot. Sad to say, I completed Moon quite nicely, quite easily. Didn't do a whole lot of post-game because I didn't feel there was a lot there. Actually, I do think I missed out on the Ultra Beast, but Ultra Moon came out, I got it, I unwrapped it, never played it.
Yeah, that's me for the last, 4 generations. No, not the last 4 generations, but yeah, I can relate. We're busy. I got a podcast to edit. I don't know what the fuck you do. It's definitely not talk to our listeners. Where have you been, man?
Busy.
I'm putting you on the spot. No, it's good to have you back. And this is an episode we've been talking about doing since the very early days.
Yep. I do remember this conversation some years ago.
Well, Phil, you've always been the one in our group of friends that really understood all the hardcore. I mean, I guess that's not true. Justin and Andre are both I don't know. But you, to me, have always been the one for me to ask when I have these deep questions about EVs and IVs and Pokemon breeding in particular.
I like to think I picked up on it before anyone else I know, but kind of flattered that you think that I'm the one that you should be going to.
Flattered and annoyed. He's like, yeah, how's your computer doing? No, I know how your computer's doing. I haven't gotten a call in a couple weeks, so...
There's that, too.
Yeah, so today we're going to be taking a deep, complex look at Pokemon breeding, both in the game and, of course, as we're wont to do, in the Pokemon universe. Let me get this out of the way, too, a little bit of a disclaimer. For the purposes of this episode, the words gender and sex may or may not be used interchangeably. Well, if they're used, they're probably being used interchangeably for the purposes of this conversation, because the idea of gender as a cultural concept is pretty much exclusively a human thing. Pokemon, it's not like a thing that's woven throughout Pokemon culture. They generally live more like wild animals, and sometimes they do have different priorities and purposes. But for the most part, the idea of gender as a cultural idea is a human thing. It doesn't. I don't think it applies to Pokemon breeding.
To add on to that, the genders aren't treated differently. There's no discerning variables. The only thing that comes into is when you're actually going into the breeding. You got to plan a few things out. For some stuff, you'll need a female. For other stuff, you'll need a male. But get them all together with the same stats, and there's no difference between male and female. So
yeah, and they refer to it as gender in the games, and I understand that the more accurate definition of gender is a cultural thing as opposed to sex being a biological thing. But evolution also doesn't occur within a single organism. Metamorphosis isn't called evolution. So just for the purposes of this episode, if we say gender and we mean sex, we don't mean anybody disrespect.
Well, he doesn't. You guys already hate me, so hats are off.
Phil's like, fuck everybody, man.
I want a good explanation for why I can only have 6, and I haven't found one yet.
Why you can only have 6. Listen to the last episode. We're coming fresh off the heels of it, so I don't expect you to have. But I think me and Jeremy did a good job of actually wrapping that one up. And if we had the time, I'd try to break it down. But in a nutshell, them's the breaks.
I suppose I shall have to be the judge of that, won't I?
Them's the breaks, man. So, Pokemon breeding. How do we want to go into this? Do we want to go head first with, like, how do we think Pokemon reproduce and where do eggs come from? And, the science and politics of sex in the Pokemon universe? Or do we want to talk about the game mechanics and how it works in game? And, like, how do we want to approach this topic?
I'm going to leave that up to you. I'm well more versed on the game mechanics side of it, not so much on the how this would actually play out. There's a couple of memes out there. A Wailord and a Skitty are in the same egg group. How do they make that happen? Especially when the Skitty's a female.
Well,
I'll leave that to you on the game side of things.
I have confidence in us, in our ability to figure that out by the end of this episode.
Yeah, I don't have that much confidence in us.
Well, let's start with what we know. What we know is that, as you said, Pokemon of 2 different sexes or genders can create an egg, but they have to belong to an egg group.
Yeah.
So what's an egg group?
So an egg group is a list of compatible Pokemon, and to get away from the dry bullshit, you have the human shapes, which can breed with other human shapes. Some Pokemon belong to different groups.
Yeah, they're almost like division, like they're categorizations of Pokemon based on who they can breed with, and they're all based on like their body type or their environment. Not so much like these are all the fire type ones, but like these are the mineral ones. These are the, like you said, human like ones. The bug ones are all in the same egg group.
Yeah, and then you have the unbreedables.
There's monster, human like, water 1, water 2, water 3, bug, mineral, flying, amorphous, field, fairy, dragon, grass, undiscovered, and of course, Ditto.
My man. My chewed up bubblegum man.
Yeah, I got my own egg group, baby.
Ditto's baller.
Yeah, so the egg groups are like categorizations of which Pokemon can breed with each other. It's not just Pokemon in the same species.
Right. I mean, a lot of times if you play your cards right, you can get 2 different species to come together. And a lot of times that's where you get some of the more interesting Pokemon running around. For example, an Alakazam with Psycho Cut. I believe that comes from something outside of... It's not something you can teach the Abra family. It's got to be bred in from something else. And the process by that is generally called egg moves. You take a female of one species, whatever you want the move to be on when you're done, and a male that has the move from a compatible species, you breed them together. If it's an egg move, it'll end up on the baby.
So basically, when you get 2 different Pokemon, I'm going to use Pokemon that aren't in the same egg group just to confuse everybody, a Caterpie and a Charmander, and you breed them. The male, they don't make a Catermander. They don't make like a combination of the 2.
I should like to see them do it, but no, it doesn't exist yet.
That would be stupid and ridiculous.
But I still want to see it.
You know what I would love to see is, a quick side note, is a type of Pokemon where there's a specific Pokemon that's male only and a specific Pokemon that's female only that clearly complement each other. And when you breed them, you get a completely different Pokemon that then has its own like evolutionary line.
You almost were right there up to Tauros and Miltank, but they don't have a special baby.
Yeah, but Wouldn't it be cool if you bred them and you got this super awesome new type of like cow-like Pokemon? I mean, it'd be cool if it was something that wasn't a cow, you know?
Well, yeah, a little weird, but there was speculation when before Buffalant came out, that might be where he came from.
More like if you took Nidoking and Nidoqueen, but don't do it to them, make a new Pokemon, but made that if Nidoking and Nidoqueen had a kid, it would be a Nidoprince. And then Nidoprince has 3 stages of evolution also.
I'm out.
No, that's why I'm saying don't do it with Nidoran. He's already done.
Right, no, I hear you.
The book's been written on Nidoran, but make a new Pokemon that has a 3-stage evolution for the males and for the females, and then if you breed the adults together, they make a third different type of Pokemon as a baby that shares qualities from both of them. It's a specific line. You can't do it with any Pokemon. You don't like that idea?
Right. No, it would be a novel idea. I'm not saying that they shouldn't do it. I'm kind of curious to see what they'll come up with.
It'd be cool.
Egg moves.
The idea is whatever Pokemon the mother is the Pokemon that the offspring will be, but whatever moves, the father passes down moves, not whatever moves it has, but the moves you referred to as egg moves.
Right, and common sense doesn't always win out in this one, so Google Foo should be sharpened when you're trying to figure this out. But there's generally a rule of thumb. If it doesn't make sense for the Pokemon to have it, it's not going to be able to be passed on to them. I don't know why Alakazam can get Psycho Cut, but he can't.
Well, can't you? You can do that's what a breeding chain is, right? Where some Pokemon belong to more than one egg group, so you can like breed moves into one Pokemon, which then can mate with another Pokemon and pass the move, which then can mate with your Alakazam and give it Psycho Cut.
Well, no, Alakazam's a lot more of a direct example. There are a couple other instances out there. For example, I believe getting Brave Bird onto a Skarmory is going to require you to... Oh, that's what it was. I was trying to get Brave Bird on a Skarmory at one point because I didn't understand that he was defensively like the best thing ever, and I still don't play mine that way, weak armor for the win. But I had to get Brave Bird onto a Fearow because I wanted the Fearow to pass Drill Pack on. So I had something that didn't take 2 turns, still did moderate damage. I think I ended up having to breed 2 separate ones in. But what ended up happening is I think I had to get Brave Bird onto a Fearow or something with Drill Pack and then have that pass both of those moves on. So you have something coming from the line next to it, and then you have something coming from a line that Skarmory either couldn't directly breed with or I couldn't get it on there. 2 separate ways. I don't remember, but I do know that there are, as you referred to, chains. They're not one that people usually go after, but they do exist where you've got something from one family that's compatible with another Pokemon. That other Pokemon can have a move bred onto them from a completely different line, which means you have to kind of use a middleman to pass the move on there. And I realize that I'm talking about actual living, breathing creatures as vessels for techniques. That sounds kind of bad.
Yeah, that's some of the territory we've been getting into, actually, these last few episodes. I'm starting to think, I have this theory that maybe in all the iterations of the Pokemon game, like I think maybe Red was a very responsible trainer, but he ushered in an era of trainers that were not so responsible. And in the different iterations, you're playing to varying degrees. They're like very powerful to the degree where they don't totally respect life. And in the main core series games, it's maybe you're someone who's starting to dip their toes into that world. And then in the Pokemon Go games, you're straight up catching so many Pokemon that you're just recycling them into candy and killing them off, and like it's ridiculous. And then in the TCG, as we've been talking about, we're theorizing that you're actually hopping universe to universe, and Pokemon are so disposable, and you're so good at what you do that you're able to evolve your Pokemon mid-battle through all 3 stages of their life, and you don't give a fuck what that does to their biology because you're like I really think that a lot of these games you are sort of playing the Rick Sanchez's of this universe, who are like a little too powerful for their own good, or the good of those around them, at least.
I wouldn't say that he's, again, not a big Rick and Morty fan. The whole one of those. I think it was in the first episode, one of the first lines where they're interacting. He's like, "I need you to stick this up your butthole," and I'm like, "What the fuck is this?" Like, I get that it's toilet humor, but what the fuck?
Yeah, the show's back and forth. It has some juvenile moments.
Well, no, it definitely does, and I've heard a lot of praise for a lot of that. It doesn't assume its audience is dumb. It doesn't take time to explain it to them.
A lot of its audience is dumb. Man, fuck a lot of the Rick and Morty audience.
I suppose. I can't comment one way or the other, but I don't know if it's that the trainers, and if I'm picking up what you're laying down, I don't know that the trainers are irresponsible with it. And if what you're positing about the TCG is correct, that you're just fuck everything else, that's just a cultural wanton disregard that's probably evolved over the last 30 or 40 years. Nobody's culture used to be that wasteful.
Right.
And I'm going to go back to blaming large corporations and the government because that's my shtick.
Hey, man, just don't say anything bad about Silph. They'll cut our funding.
No, Silph is for the people. They're cool.
But yeah, I mean, on that level, though, breeding, I feel like the culturally sanctioned version of being a Pokemon breeder is like doing what Brock aspires to do. You're not just animal breeding, but you're also like caring for the Pokemon. You're paying special attention to like its specific grooming and dietary needs.
So husbandry then.
Yeah, exactly. All the things associated with animal husbandry.
Oh, no, screw that. If you don't get the IVs you want, you chuck it.
Yeah,
That's
the
it.
culturally unsanctioned version is what you do in the game when you're like breeding for your specific natures and IVs and shit, where you're just like mass hoarding them and breeding them. And like, yeah, they're disposable to you. And that would not be sanctioned. That's not why they developed the PC system.
Well,
and
maybe it would. I mean, I got rid of all of my 5-point clones. Just dumped them right onto the Wonder Trade, and someone got something they wanted, or at least got something they could trade to someone they wanted. I think there's
I think that's how it starts, though. I do. I think it's how it starts. Is you start with the IV breeding, and then first you're just starting with the battle and beating the Elite Four. Then you got to beat your friends, your competitive people, and then you start with the IV breeding. Then you're breeding all these people. And the next thing you know, you're learning to play the card game. You're playing the card game. You're hopping universes. You got 3 Mewtwo's in your deck. One of them's an electric type. You evolved 6 different Charizards in the last battle, and then threw them away and replaced them with Dark Charizard. Man,
I don't know about all that. I do know that it starts with the Elite Four and wanting to be the very best. No, it's not. It's someone to beat the game suited has to offer. And for some people who want to run and collect everything, that's fine. I always was just kind of like, okay, these are the guys that I like. They're terrible. Let's see if I can make them good. And that's the kind of way that I've always approached it. So towards the later times when I was invested in the game, I would screw some of the newer games for not giving you Ditto partway through the story. You got to beat the Elite Four to get Ditto because we know you're going to just put it on. Whatever.
Now, Ditto, of course, we haven't paid lip service to this yet, but
Ditto's amazing.
Can breed with any type of Pokemon. So that if you breed a Ditto with a male Pokemon, then the child will be the male parent instead of the female parent, because we said the child inherits its Pokemon species from its mother.
Right. The case with Ditto is
Ditto's genderless
is
also.
Anything. You put anything with the Ditto, you will get a whatever you put in with it, the baby form of it.
But Ditto can't breed with itself, though.
No, it can't.
So where do wild Ditto come from?
Well, that's a question I will leave to you, and I will tell you that the answer is on Cinnabar Island, or was before it went down.
I think so, man. I really am starting to think so. Like, that's the type of theory that I don't want to believe in. And I'm like, no, that's stupid, but fuck, I just keep finding more and more evidence that it's true that Ditto was just a failed clone of Mew.
There's more that goes into it, but if you want to sum it up that way, yeah.
Well, there's more that goes into it?
Yeah, I mean, that's not what this episode is about, but yeah, I mean, Ditto's amazing. He gets his own episode all on his own, but yeah, he's
their own. It's genderless.
Its own. It's genderless.
It's a sentient being. Don't call it it.
You just did. Fine. They will get their own episode just because they're that amazing. For the record, I run a shiny Ditto on my team. Come at me, bro.
It's also possible, too, as we kind of mentioned in the Nidoran episode, that some of these Pokemon that can't breed in captivity. Legendary Pokemon like Articuno and Zapdos, we've seen their eggs in Pokemon Snap, for example. So they probably can breed, but probably not in captivity.
If you would call laying an egg and sitting on it breeding. But yes, I'm sure that what they're trying to imply is that the heritage of legendary birds or whatever can be carried on.
Now, there we go, though. What happens? Nobody knows. Either that or everyone's lying to you because you're playing a young character. But as far as you're told in the game, no one's ever seen Pokemon breed, and nobody knows where these eggs that appear come from.
See, that's where I think the character is a little bit too young. I would have liked to see a game where you're 25 or 30 or, heaven forbid, an old man and nobody sugarcoats anything for you anymore. When you go back to the daycare, it's not, your Pokemon were playing and, oh, gee, we found an egg. No, they fucked. And that's where the egg came from. It's not that hard to understand.
Yeah, so the daycare couple, then you think if you were an adult, you think the reason they say no one knows where the egg came from is because they're like, I'm not your fucking mom. I'm not having that talk with this kid.
I think it has a lot to do with that. And not only that, I think that's a loophole for the creators to get out of having to explain exactly how it goes in. Again, Whale Lord and Skitty can produce a female. If you have a female Skitty, they can produce an egg.
Exactly. So maybe...
And that's disturbing. No. Let that sink in. Whale Lord. Giant whale. Huge.
I think...
Cat.
Yeah. Because you know what? I think there's not really any evidence to think that Pokemon have sex. I mean, with a caveat. Let me define have sex. So...
Yeah, I think you probably should.
They clearly do have sex because there's two different sexes of Pokemon, and in order to create an egg, the two of them must mix their genetics or energy or whatever to pass on to their offspring. Yeah. And that is sexual reproduction no matter how it happens. But I don't think the means by which they do it is similar in any way to what we would traditionally define as sexual intercourse. So, like, first of all, like...
It would be very complicated if it were.
So many people just assume... They're like, how do genderless Pokemon reproduce? Motherfucker, we don't know how Pokemon with genders reproduce, with sexes. Everyone assumes they just have sex, and they don't mention it because it's a kid's game, but I really think that that's not what happens. I think it's just like when you battle, it's an exchange, and you train an exchange of this energy that me and Jeremy talked about last weekend, and your aura, and this bond between you and your auras. Like, I think it's an exchange and a commingling of their energies. Like, I think... Because no one's seen it happen. They've said that nobody has seen it happen. If no one's seen it happen, like, maybe it's because they're looking for them to be humping each other. But really, they're just, sorry to all you hentai enthusiasts, but the actually accurate Pokemon hentai would be two Pokemon just sitting there staring at each other in a meditative trance, and then suddenly an egg appears in a flash of light.
Just pops in out of nowhere.
How is that any more unbelievable than like mad leaves appearing out of nowhere, or water appearing out of nowhere, or fire, or electricity? And I know you can think of biological sources of these things, but still, all that water Blastoise shoots out, like, there's clearly energy involved, and it's represented in the card game, and blah, blah, blah.
That's fine, whatever. No, I see where you're coming from. I think to get that kind of thing to manifest in the specifics that it would need to manifest, it's a lot closer to how fish do it. They lay eggs. The male does something to fertilize
the egg,
and maybe the female either carries it around very close or whatever. But it doesn't have to go the same way that we would assume that humans and stuff reproduce.
I like that. That makes a lot of sense. But I would still see that you don't have to poop out the egg. You know, I know you don't poop out an egg. I know that's not how feminine biology works. I know eggs don't come out of your butt, to my women listeners. I'm sorry for being an idiot.
You're for real?
But maybe the female does create the egg, and then the male does inseminate the egg. Like, and I still kind of think it happens with energy. They create it through their energy. They don't produce it from their body. They do, but through the energy, it materializes.
I mean, it's entirely possible.
The male would, again, inseminate it, not with a penis and sperm, but like, I'm not trying to be, but like, then with energy. And then that's why the species would be the mother, because that's the one that created the egg. And then the male would give it its moves, because the male's putting its energy into the egg.
Well, they can pass down a lot more than that, but but it's entirely possible that
the essence of the male is being passed into the body of the female.
Right. It's feasible. Again, I haven't discussed this, and in fact have not thought about this in quite a good long while. But yeah, it's entirely possible that the female is
I
just
know your internet browsing history, Phil.
No, you don't.
You
think you do, you don't. But what it eventually boils down to
my internet browsing history is not only stranger than you imagine, but stranger than you can imagine.
We all got vices, all right? Let's leave it there. The point that I want to make is that, it's entirely possible that the female's energy, she decides that, it's okay that they can reproduce, whatever, and they, whatever, they put on some Marvin Gaye, whatever.
The daycare couple's like Chef in the fucking pig and elephant episode. He's like, ooh, tonight
They just
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Elton John.
They just drop a little needle on a record player, and it's yeah, and it just goes right into whatever it is. But it's entirely possible that they use their energies and they make this conscious choice to poof an egg into existence, and the male's like, I'm going to pass my energy through it, and what it picks up, which would explain why
typical male attitude.
Shoot stuff at it until something sticks. Typical American male. No, but that would explain egg moves actually quite nicely, is the Pokemon's not capable of understanding how to do that with their body when they're, I guess we could call it in fetus. And so that type of knowledge is not passed on to them. And when the baby comes out, it's a fully fledged level 1, whatever it is, and it knows how to do that.
And you mentioned something about a third party. Like, you have to bring them to the daycare for it to happen. And,
right.
Oh, also, this is just a minor thing, but I thought it was worth mentioning because I like how it parallels. Like, if they have 2 different trainer IDs, they're more likely to produce an egg, which I like that because it's like genetic variation, energy variation. They don't have to carry the same aura that you all carry as sharing your bond,
Yeah, it's entirely possible. It does definitely help. And side note, for those that are thinking of trading to make breeding go faster, get an international version. And the reason for that is your chances of getting a shiny variant of whatever it is that you're trying to breed is remarkably higher. So if you are shooting for shinies and you are doing the wonder trade, try to sift out one that actually has all of its... if it's an international version and you are shooting for a shiny, it's much more likely to happen.
And somebody traded me a shiny Umbreon from Japan for like a Bulbasaur or something once.
Yep, yeah. I was there and I was jealous.
It was pretty dope.
No, it sucked.
But
which is fine because Espeon's better anyway.
So you mentioned this third party of having the daycare at having the people at the daycare having to facilitate it. It could just be a game mechanic, but maybe it's a bit of both. Like, maybe it's like getting a mule. A horse and a donkey out in the wild don't just be like, hey, let's make a mule. It takes some coaxing from humans in order to produce an offspring. They don't just go about doing it. So maybe like in the wild, Raichus breed and give birth to Pikachus, and like then it involves some type of human involvement. No, not that type of involvement, sickos.
Yes, you sick. Fuck.
But like in order to get these 2 different Pokemon of different breeds sometimes to mate with each other. Or,
here's a thought, just throwing it out there, what if they're harnessing the energy from the Pokemon and mixing it themselves, and then whatever you get, they're not responsible, they're just kind of putting 2 halves of the egg together. Maybe they have some kind of energy condenser or neuralizer and it just sticks it together and here you go. We didn't do it.
That's true. They could have technological means helping. I don't think so, though, because they say they don't know, and I'm going to take them at their word.
I think they're full of crap because they've been using it. Every breeder's been using that same line.
But once you start assuming that NPCs are just lying to you in the game with no motivation...
You can't see the look I'm giving him, but I cannot stomach this.
Well, if you're like, yeah, Giovanni lied to you when he said this, I'm like, okay. But if you're just like, yeah, this person's lying when they give you this information about the world, I'm like, yeah, but I can't. Then what can we believe? Then what is real? My whole worldview is called into question.
Well,
are you telling me I can carry 7 Weedles?
Just a thought. Maybe it should be called into question. Just throwing it out there. I mean, the audience was expecting me to say it. I'm just going to say it. No, I think it is something that they have proprietary technology on. Otherwise, why would they, charge you for something that is raised but does not grow? Why does it have to only be done there? One of the things that I actually wanted to see in Sun and Moon was you being able to, it's a good thing, it is a big request in games nowadays, is player-owned housing. Why can't I start a Pokemon ranch? Why can't I do the breeding myself? Deposit these 2 in the breeding pen and then come back when enough cycles have taken place and see if it's happened. Why do I have to pay these people and keep jimmying this and out and screwing up my inventory and all that jazz?
Someday, because they can't put everything in the games. They're putting more and more, though. And
that I feel you on. I just feel like it's a minor inconvenience, and whether or not they're sticking to it for whatever reason, I believe that if you're going to sit there and say that nobody knows what's going on, I am going to say that there is something pretty heavy going on there, and that's what they're sticking to. Like if
it's a game like Hoenn where you can have your own home base, why can't you leave 2 Pokemon at the home base at least, and then come back and,
Okay, I'm assuming that the game's reason you can't is because they have something that they need to do that makes it happen.
You know what would be great?
No, but you're going to tell me.
Oh, if when you traded Pokemon and you had a Pokemon that was traded to you on your team, you never know, but one of them, if you have two in the same egg group on your team and you're training with them for a while, they might just produce an egg and surprise you and be like, hey, guess what? Yeah, your Umbreon and your Espeon that are both opposite genders, and someone traded you the Espeon, fell in love when you weren't looking, and now they produced an egg. Go pick it up at the PC.
There's some Barry Manilow playing in the background, and oh, look at that. Your last inventory slot is an egg. How about that? Oh, you didn't have an inventory slot? Yeah, you're kind of a douche. Just left an egg out there to die.
No, you pick it up at the PC.
Well, how would that work?
It gets transported the same way your extra Pokemon would.
So you threw a Pokeball at an egg you didn't even know existed, and it got transported to your PC. Huh, that's a shocker.
I don't know, man. It's in a game.
No, I think it's a game mechanic. It'd be a fantastic addition.
Yeah. But
the sheer amount of just what the fuck source from people who don't sit there and read these charts, like you can put... I don't have the charts in front of me, but you can put quite a few things together, and suddenly your team of what you thought was diverse has somehow produced a Ghastly or something with moves from a Hitmonchan. I don't know if that's even possible, but the idea is there that it's feasible. And the other thing that calls into question is move tutors.
Ghastly, use Mega Kick. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, I got this.
So... there is a man in Coumarine City in X and Y, I guess, who says that the eggs aren't actually eggs. They're more like cradles, which is a weird thing to say.
It's an interesting thought.
Someone said that to me downtown once. They're like, eggs aren't actually eggs. They're more like cradles.
Cradles for the energies.
I was like, here's $1. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crazy Man. Moving on with my day.
So I don't know what to make of that. But some people have theorized that Arceus actually puts the egg there, because the only in-game explanation you ever get for any egg, for the source of any egg, is in that event in Heart Gold and Soul Silver where Arceus shows up and gives you a Giratina, Palkia, Dialga egg.
Well, that's quite interesting. I do not remember that. But what happens when Arceus is caught?
It was dope. I don't know, man. That's a big debate on this episode too. I mean, on this show too.
Well, I mean, there's no entities left to represent that haven't already been captured. You look at Palkia Dialga, time and space. You look at Giratina.
Did Arceus create the universe or the multiverse? I think Arceus only created the universe, so there's probably an Arceus for every universe in the multiverse.
That would explain why he's got plates, but...
so if he gets caught, maybe that universe just doesn't have an Arceus.
Isn't there a bigger one out there that keeps an eye on the multiverse, though? To put the eggs there?
That should be a legendary Pokemon one day. Where can we go from Arceus? Well, there's infinite Arceuses.
Mega Arceus.
I don't know. I feel like this is one of those scenarios where the mythical and scientific explanations can both be true.
Myth is just something that science hasn't explained yet. Same with magic.
It's like God put the baby there and the baby was made by the way sexual reproduction works. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Who put the egg in a human's womb?
That's just how she was created?
That's what I'm saying. The idea that Arceus puts the egg there can be true without it having to be literal, or it could be literal and there's still a biological explanation for it. You know what I mean?
I think we're better off going with Cradle Crazy over there and going with the auras or whatever it is you were going on about. I really have to listen to last episode.
To be fair, it was Scumbag Greg, and he was high on meth, and he was like, hey man, eggs, they're not really eggs.
Not the guy in Coumarine City.
They're more like cradles, man.
I guess
you're right. These games are 3D. There's less room for interpretation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but it comes down to maybe the guy's right. Maybe the developers were kind of like, look, you're looking at it too literally. Think of it this way. And they're just like, okay, these are the powers they have. They make a decision. They want to mix their energies. They do. And then maybe it coalesces as a shell around the energy while the Pokemon is, I want to say maturing, but I know that's not the right word. We'll go with growing or forming.
Evolving.
Nah, because that would imply that there's a form we don't know. Yeah, I'm just going to stop
there. For the purposes of this conversation, the words gender and metamorphosis may be used interchangeably. Also, for the purposes of this episode, the genders may be used interchangeably. Speaking of confusing different terms together, now we have to talk about which type of evolution we're talking about. I'm talking about there's macroevolution, which is the evolution, what we mean in the real world, Darwinian evolution.
Okay.
And then there's microevolution, which is Pokemon metamorphosis.
Okay.
So macroevolution, like apparently just how well macro evolved Pokemon are as a species, the species Pokemon, it's one species, has caused Pokemon to almost eliminate being a baby from their life cycle unless they participate in this like archaic ritual involving incense where like they use specific incenses when they
yes, the baby forms.
Yeah, then that's the way you get baby forms. And it's just like in the real world, we give birth to our newborns earlier than most animals do because their heads are so big that if we didn't give birth early, the heads aren't fully formed, it would either kill the baby or the mother. One of them would die in every childbirth because the heads would be too big and too large. That's why like deer can walk right out of their womb, and human babies are just useless because our human babies should, by all other animal like rules of the animal kingdom, still be in the womb, and that's why we have to keep them in a cradle and carry them around and take extra special care of them and hold their heads up because they're not formed enough to be out of the womb. It's how smart we are and how big our brains got, how fast the physical body didn't keep up with it, so we started giving birth to our babies earlier to protect our own bodies, and now we have to protect those babies. So like it's an evolutionary disadvantage to have to protect your babies. It's just that's how powerful intelligence was, that it didn't matter. Intelligence was a good enough evolutionary advantage. So Pokemon, though, they've almost eliminated being babies from their life cycle,
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool that like this incense, which is like this archaic old tradition, is how they can recall this archaic old tradition of giving birth to babies,
Must be nice to be them.
I don't know. I just think that's really interesting. And the baby forms are cute.
I guess. I was never one for them.
What about babies having babies? Now we got babies having babies. You catch a Kangaskhan and it hatches with a baby in its pouch. Send it to Maury Povich right out the womb, man.
I can't even.
On the real, though, I don't think Kangaskhan's come out of the eggs with a baby in their pouch. Nor do I think, like we discussed in episode 1, we talked about how the Pokedex says that a Bulbasaur's parents put the seed in its back, and you were like, no, it doesn't. It hatches out of the
biologically there.
But I don't think that's true. I think that's like the game's not going to program every time you hatch a Cubone for it to come out without a skull, and then you see it walk over to its dead mother and put the skull on, and like the Kangaskhan's born without a baby, but then a day later gives birth to a baby. Kangaskhan probably just give birth to baby very shortly after being born or something, like...
Yeah.
They can't depict everything for all 8,000 Pokemon in the game,
8,000? Man, I've been away for a while.
Well, we like to keep these episodes evergreen, so when people are listening in 2021 and there's 8,000 Pokemon, they'll be like, yeah.
Well, I suppose that makes a lot more sense.
So, all right. I think what the people want to know, man, is what's up with not EVs. EVs are basically from battling, right?
No, EVs are awesome. They're these cute little kind of foxy cat things.
Yeah, EVs, but EVs, effort values.
Those things.
You can tell the difference between EVs and IVs, because IVs, what, inherent values?
Yes. No, I don't think inherent is a technical term, but it essentially stands for genetics. You can't change them once the Pokemon is born.
Yeah, EVs...
Or actually once you pick up the egg.
You can tell the difference because EV is effort value, and its individual values is IV.
There you go. That's what it's called.
So, like, you're born as an individual, and those are your values. But your EVs are something you get from the effort you put into training, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't really need to talk that much about EVs because that doesn't have much to do with breeding, right?
No, not really.
But if you have a EV enhancing item, I think that's cool. If the father's wearing like a macho brace or something, it passes down the enhanced EVs.
Well, what it comes down to is less the macho brace, because I'm not aware of that one, but the power anklet, the power specs, the power...
Yeah.
Whatever, power weight, that kind of thing. Those will cause whatever parent that is holding it to pass down whatever trait that power whatever is presided over. So a quick rundown on IVs. It's a number between 0 and 31 that's assigned to your Pokemon at the time that you pick up the egg, based on the parents and some good old-fashioned RNG. So get used to making more
RNG?
of those. Random number generation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So some good old RNG. And the parents and whatever they're holding and pass down. There's one for every stat: HP, attack, defense, special attack, special defense, and speed. So 6 of them. They are randomly generated, and I think 1 or 2 come from the parents. I think 1 each from a parent are passed down to the baby, chosen at random, and then the other 4 are just rolled for. If you are wearing the power anklet or bracelet or whatever speed that power device carries or is tied to, you are guaranteed to inherit that stat from that parent. So if you've got something with a perfect 31 IV in attack and you give them the power, whatever the power thing is for attack, your child is guaranteed to 100% of the time have that 31 attack IV.
Okay.
And it's what you're going to get started with once you start picking up perfect IVs. If you are going to create a perfect Pokemon, and by perfect I mean 5 stats are perfect. No Pokemon really needs all 6 of them to be really high, and aside from the fact it's near impossible.
But then you've also got to factor in breeding the right ability and nature as well, right?
The ability and nature are usually taken care of before you start going after IVs. Or, if you're unorthodox, you'll take care of the IVs, and because a lot of it actually comes from incest, which is something that will kind of become apparent the more you start looking at it. But say you are breeding a Ghastly, and you need a high special attack IV because you want to throw in a special attack. So you find something in that Ghastly's egg group that has a 31 IV. You run out, you catch it, you do whatever you got to do to get one, and you throw on the power specs or whatever they are, and the baby will always come out with a 31 IV. Then you eventually keep making babies until you find one that has the 31 IV in special attack and also, let's say, a 31 in speed. Well, now you take that one, stick it in the daycare with the one that's guaranteeing you a 31 special attack IV, and now you're constantly producing babies that have both of those. Eventually, or unless you just like breeding randomly, you'll get to the point where you get a Destiny Knot. Now, a Destiny Knot will guarantee that 5 stats will come from the parents, and only 1 is randomly generated. Once you get to the point where both parents are 3 and 4 IVs, you throw the Destiny Knot on one, the Everstone on the other one, because breeding with an Everstone will pass down the nature. That's guaranteed. So if you need a modest one, then you would catch one that has modest, chuck an Everstone on it, and then most of your IV stuff will all be done from there on, because you can pretty much guarantee yourself a modest one as long as you keep going with one having the Everstone.
Okay.
But you get a good one, and you just keep breeding and breeding and breeding all the way down. Eventually, you'll find one that pops out with 5 IVs that you like, or 4 IVs and a really strong 5th one, and wherever you're willing to settle. Eventually, if you have 2 parents that both have 5 IVs the way you want it, you will eventually come up with what we call a flawless. And that is all 6 stats are perfect 31s. And if you can ever find a flawless Ditto with, in various natures, but if you can ever find a flawless Ditto with a good nature, that's probably as good as gold as you're ever going to get to a breeder.
Wow. So that's what these breeders, that's what the ultimate universe hopping Pokemon trainer is doing, is searching for a flawless Ditto.
Essentially, yeah. If you can find one of those, then to a breeder, you can get anything off them for it. Just because it's going to make them, you have a flawless Ditto, a perfect 31 in all stats, and he's whatever nature. It doesn't even matter, because you'll throw the Destiny Knot on him, and then you pick up a Tyranitar. My Tyranitar is garbage. I trained him wrong. His IVs are trash. I want to go competitive. So you throw them in the daycare together, because Ditto mixes with anything. The Larvatars that come out will have usually 5 perfect stats. Maybe not all in the same spot, but say that Larvitar picked up 3 perfect stats. Well, the Destiny Knot takes 5, split between the 2 parents, and since Ditto's is perfect, all you have to do is keep taking one that has 2 IVs, 3 IVs, 4 IVs, sticking that in the other parent slot, and you'll get what you need. Just make sure that it's the right nature before you start.
And see, that's I can't be mad at that. It's annoying because it's damn it, if I don't have time to do all that shit, then I just can't win Pokemon matches. But at the same time, it's well, there are the people who do have time to dedicate doing that are going to be better.
I would posit that you shouldn't need to do this in order to win Pokemon matches. If you're relying on this as a crutch to get through a match, there are bigger issues.
I don't know. I guess just unless I'm willing to, you can't be competitive and also just kind of pick Pokemon you like and train them.
Screw the competitive scene. I can't stand the competitive scene.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be competitive, but I mean, it would be nicer to have battles, and I just feel like I can't because I don't have the time to to do everything needed to like.
It's not what one would call easy. I mean, you got people that are out there doing it, and you can eventually, trade them something interesting. If you run across a shiny, but you don't want that shiny, you could always trade it on, forums or wherever to get one if you were that interested.
I guess it's just like I suck at basketball, but if I really wanted to go play a game of basketball, I could still have fun, like playing one-on-one with someone. I could find somebody. I could probably just go to the park and find somebody there who play me one-on-one on basketball and have a good time if I wanted to play basketball, which I don't. I'd rather do a podcast. But like, and in the Pokemon universe, it would probably be easier if you kind of sucked, but you had some Pokemon and, to like go to the town square and, battle with a few other people that aren't like big league. If you're going to go sign up for a big Pokemon League at the Indigo Plateau grand annual tournament, like then you're going to get your ass whooped, but it'd probably be easier to have friendly battles with people and still, that are training out on the route and stuff. And, I don't know. And it's tougher in this world because it's like no matter where you go, you're going to run into the competitive top of the line
douchebags.
Yeah. And even if they're not a douchebag, it's like, yeah, but they put in the effort and the time that you don't have the time to put into. I don't know.
Yeah, regardless they're out with a douchebag or not, but it's generally the people that put this type of time into it are the types that are going to be, I've got to crush you.
Yeah, and that pick the teams based on which Pokemon are competitive and stuff. Like, I like what you said, is you're like, if they're not good, I try to figure out how to make them good. And that's cool. I like, that's what I want Pokemon to do in the future. I've said it before, is make more ways to customize Pokemon so that you can make up for weaknesses and have your own individual team. And it's harder to predict strategy for people. I know that sucks because then it's harder to play test and find broken strategies, and that would make it easier for these competitive people to just find a broken strategy. But like, I think it'd be cool if there was a way to be like, word, Farfetch sucks, but maybe if there's all these different modifying techniques I can do to change the Farfetch to make it better and make it my own, it would be able to hold its own,
Entirely possible. It's an interesting thing, but as you said, there are so many balance issues that go into that. And that's kind of where Egmoo started coming from, is, okay, this is what it is. And then I believe it was in Gold and Silver. It's like, okay, well, now such and such can learn this, but they don't learn it naturally, so we'll just have it come in through breeding.
There you go. And then they're selling it, and then now they want to sell it.
Yep.
Breeding. Well, I don't know. I think we pretty much that's breeding in a cradle.
Hardy har har.
Yep. And that's another episode of Silph Radio, and I really hope to have you back here for another one, man.
We'll just have to see what the future holds.
We will just have to see what the future holds. Let's see together, shall we? Come join us. Please let me and Phil know what you thought about the episode on our Facebook page, Silph Radio Podcast, or on our subreddit, r/Silph Radio. It's a lot of fun, and we hope you join us there. And the subreddit is open for anybody to talk about, like, Pokemon matters. It doesn't have to be specifically about our episode. Like, if you want to start a breeding thread and just go off in your own direction, that'd be awesome. Or even just something we haven't talked about yet. I'm having a lot of fun with the Reddit. I have a great story to share about it soon. That's fun.
Sounds like it. I guess I have to look into how big this has gotten.
Yeah, the subreddit's not very huge, but we've got some people posting there, and I'm inviting more. It's fun. Oh man, I can't wait to share that story. If we weren't getting ready to wrap up, I'd throw it out there now. But I'm sure you've got places to be. You're doing a lot of mysterious things nowadays that I've had trouble putting my finger on, but I've tracked you down and hope to again in the future.
Again, like I said, we'll just have to see what the future holds. And yeah, I've been pulling a lot of strings lately and just kind of trying to stay out of the limelight. And it just, maybe that time's going to come to a close. Maybe I'll be on here more often, throwing more stuff out there. That'd maybe nice. Saying less and more articulation. But we will have to see.
That'd be nice, man. I've missed you, so have the listeners, and we all look forward to hearing from you again. From the secret, well, is there anything else you guys should do? Go check out Fairpoint. Go to secretroommultimedia.com. The website's been up and running for a bit now. Click around. There's some cool stuff on there. My old comic, Moose and Toast. There's music, all original content from the people you've grown to know and love over the last 58 episodes. Please join us at the Secret Room. I'm Nathan K.
And I'm Phil Cobb.
And we will talk to you guys next time.
Roll outro.
I am God. You still there? You're still there. Surprise! I keep telling you guys, we're like the Marvel flicks. If you dip out during the closing theme, you never know what you could be missing. Lots of cool things have happened since the recording of this episode, and I'd just like to drop in and have a word or two with the Silph listeners and share a recent guest appearance I did on a very thought-provoking podcast. Silph Radio guest host Jolly by Nature and his friends Messer Engine and Celes were gracious enough to invite me over to their program, Blast Burn Radio, to participate in a roundtable discussion on the ethics of video game emulation. The conversation was almost 2 hours long, and I really enjoyed getting to be a part of it. I hope you'll enjoy this small sample of the discussion, and I hope it intrigues you enough to send you over to their podcast to download the full episode, as well as many, many more. To everybody out there who has sent in your teams and is waiting patiently to hear their moment on air, keep listening. I recorded this episode a couple months ago, as well as the next one you're going to listen to, and the previous one you listened to before this one. I've had a bunch of real-world serious matters to attend to, which have gotten in the way of producing as many podcasts as I'd prefer to, but I'm really looking forward to getting my nose back on that grindstone and getting back to the long list of things I've been dying to talk about. Next episode, Craig and Justin are together for the first time, united to discuss a very strange and curious topic. It may possibly be the weirdest topic we've covered on Silph yet. But for now, we're joined by our friends Mess, Celes, and JBN for a fun and challenging congress on gaming, technology, and ethics. Enjoy this selection from Blast Burn Radio. Talk to you guys soon.
So let's define these terms for a minute. Let's talk about exactly what we're talking about. So emulation, as it pertains to gaming, is the act of using a program to run software on a device or in a manner that it was not meant to be used. As it pertains to Pokemon, commonly, emulator programs can allow you to play games intended for Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Advance, DS, etc. on your computer, phone, tablet, or even a jailbroken handheld console like the PSP, the Vita, or the 3DS. You can, if you choose to, if you're interested in those types of things, you can jailbreak a 3DS to play Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance games through ROMs, which a ROM is basically just if you took all the software on your game cartridge and just yanked it off and put it on the computer. And then you have specialized programs that can read it just like your console would. Emulation is popular for any number of reasons, really. It can be really convenient, seeing as you carry your phone everywhere, generally speaking, unless you're a Luddite. And if you aren't emulating, then you have to carry another device just to play a game. And in 2018, that doesn't feel as convenient as it did 20 years ago. So some people emulate just for the convenience of having the game on their phone. For some older titles specifically, there are starting to be hardware concerns where older game cartridges are outliving their intended life cycle and they're starting to fail. Content creators and streamers, such as the three of us who are regularly on this show, we frequently emulate, not we specifically, but content creators frequently emulate for ease of use in broadcasting. You could bypass the need for expensive recording and broadcasting equipment by playing directly on the PC that you're streaming from. And of course, many, many people emulate to play games they have never purchased and will never purchase. Like, this is a tool of theft and piracy for many, many people. And in case you are a Luddite and somehow found our internet podcast, piracy is where you take software that is not yours without the intention of paying for it. So those are kind of the key things that we're talking about tonight. So let's start by defining what our starting point is, where everyone stands on emulation. So for you personally, is this a black and white issue for you? Is emulation always 100% morally, ethically correct, nothing wrong with it? Is it a black issue? Is it just the devil? It's bad. Never, ever, ever do it. Great Father Nintendo, we love you. Please bless us with your many, many Switches. Or is it a gray area? And if it's a gray area, when is it acceptable? When is it wrong?
So I think maybe out of the group of us, I'm going to have, I don't know if it's a different opinion than you guys, but my company produces content that, is valuable to folks who make D&D modules or Pathfinder modules. Like, what we sell has value to people, and a lot of people want to use it without paying for it. So, like, piracy is a concern for me as a business person, and it does color my opinion on this a little bit because I'm a small business owner, and I need every penny. Like, no fucking joke. I need every penny because that money goes to pay the artists who produce the material that we make, right? Those guys gotta eat. They gotta feed their kids, pay the mortgage, do all that stuff. So obviously we want to be bringing in that kind of a cash. Now, obviously we're talking about Pokemon tonight, not RPG assets, but that was just to give everybody kind of background on, why my opinions might be what they are. That said, piracy is something that is always going to exist. You can never have a product that exists, especially on the internet, or digitally, that will not be stolen. Like, it's going to happen no matter what. I personally think that for emulation in particular, it's a gray area. And I think it's a gray area because I think the burden of providing alternative means of monetizing falls on the creator of the content. Like, if it's a situation in which there's demand for something and you are not providing it, and there is no other reasonable way to get it, or there are significant pitfalls to doing so, and there are people making content bringing attention to your product that's good for you, then, maybe that's a thing that's okay once in a while, depending on how it's being used. But it's definitely not a complete black issue for me, even though I do, obviously, again, produce content that I don't want to be stolen. But I think we saw that early. Like, I lived during the age of Napster, where music was stolen regularly all the time. And what the music industry figured out is if you provide something to people at an affordable cost, like an affordable price, it's easily accessible, people most of the time are okay paying for it. Like, if you look at Game of Thrones, which is the most pirated television series in history, why is that? Because it's exclusively on HBO at a price point that's outside most people's capability to do so. Maybe up until recently with their streaming service. But that's kind of how you end up in situations where people steal shit. If they cannot get it another way at a price point which they feel provides the value of that product.
Well, yeah, I mean, something Jolly said earlier that ties directly to what you're saying, like the accessibility of video games because of like the nature of the business, not because of the art itself, but the nature of the business it's way less accessible than like other media, like music and movies. You can watch an old movie whenever you want. I mean, sure, some of them haven't been re-released, but most movies or music is available in a modern form of like media, but with video games, like if you don't have an Atari to play an Atari game on or a Nintendo to play a Nintendo game on, and it's not on the eShop, which is a lot of titles, and if you can't afford to buy a different system for every single type, like every game you want to play, you only have to buy one machine to watch your movies on. So like you were saying with the telephones, I'm so old. You started bringing up phones and I'm like, oh my God, I wasn't even like considering that people use emulators so they can play on their phones. I'm so old. But yeah, it's that becomes an issue when it's like, I want to play Chrono Trigger and I don't have 30 minutes to wait in between battles because it was a really bad decision putting it on the PlayStation and it worked a lot better on the Super Nintendo. So my only option is a SNES emulator, right? So that's really frustrating. But then I feel like the big issue is that it's a gray area, but it would be difficult to pin down like, well, it is acceptable in these scenarios and it isn't acceptable in these scenarios, especially with regards to like legally. And I know that's not the point to discuss legally, but we're discussing morals. So there's some set of rules, even if they are, vague. There's some set of an idea of like, there's some sort of behavior you should exhibit that's correct or incorrect with regards to emulation. And I feel like the problem with that is it's so subjective as to when it is like, yeah, there's no other way for me to play Earthbound. There's no other way for me to play Earthbound. Like, what do you want me to do if I want to play Earthbound and appreciate that art? And on the other hand, an up and coming artist is having a hard enough time trying to figure out what is a fair and reasonable price to charge for a product that he's only really going to work on once and then is just going to reproduce a bunch of times. That's hard enough to figure out, let alone throwing in the factor that it can be reproduced at the cost of nothing with the press of a button. It's so hard to figure out what you're going to charge for that. And then if you enjoy an artist's work, and they're not well established and you're just gonna, like pirate their work in some way, that is sort of like stealing. But then I feel like if you're gonna download Jay-Z's new album because you can only get it if you subscribe to Tidal, and then if you miss your bill, you can't listen to your favorite album. Like what the fuck is that? You can't have a physical copy of your favorite album. I don't know. I'm getting a little off base, but so to me, it's tough because what I think it is us trying in the long run. I don't know how far into the future we're looking here, but very soon we're going to be needing an entirely new like social model with regards to a lot of stuff. Like pretty soon we're going to be able to digitally reproduce like anything. And pretty soon after that, we're going to have replicators like Star Trek. Like I know that's wild and out there, but there's really no reason to believe if we don't kill ourselves that won't happen one day, and we won't need some type of economic model to deal with that. And it's tough because I don't have the answer, and I don't know if anybody does, but we have to do this. We got to talk about it, or we'll never get there.
No, absolutely. I mean, we're approaching post-scarcity, which is going to render capitalism itself obsolete, because capitalism is, built upon the model that everything has a price because everything has inherent value. But if everything is reproducible to the nth degree with no labor and minimal cost, then does everything really have value anymore in a monetary sense? But that's deep as fuck. Like, we're here to talk about people like stealing Pokemon games.
Which leads me to the issue of artificial intelligence. No.
So, Celeste, what do you think about emulation? What is your moral stance on the subject?
So I'm going to play off the digital rights management that was just brought up. It's been done in different ways. A really bad example would be Diablo 3, where you basically can't play the game unless you're online. And that basically means if those servers go away, and it's happened to many games, that game's gone. You can't play it. And people are going to figure out how to emulate that later down the road if they want to play it. It's just going to happen. Now, I think it's a gray area as well. I'm a developer. I haven't really made any big games. I've only done stuff in school, and I'm a business analyst. I do small program stuff, but honestly, in my opinion, if someone creates something, they should get paid. Whether or not they're artist or developer or anything, everyone needs to be able to live in this society. Again, that will go away further down the road, but right now people need to eat in our capitalist society. So stealing from them isn't the best thing. Now, it is a gray area because what if you already have the game and you just want to emulate it because the hardware's not working, or it's not convenient for you to dig out your Game Boy Color and use batteries to play something that you could play on your phone and have it just there. You're technically not stealing the game. They don't make it available to you in their shop for some reason, even though it would take them maybe 10 minutes to copy it over and get it to work. I mean, the programs are out there. Nintendo, you can do this. It's not hard.
We believe in you, Nintendo.
It frustrates me. And another thing, I emulate games that are from Japan that were never ported over here, that are translated by people who are fans of it. A good example is Sword of Mana 3, which is the third game after Secret of Mana. Not many people have played that. It's an amazing game, but it was never available in the US.
So yeah, again, what is your option?
Yeah, and Nintendo did a frickin' compilation in Japan with all those games on the frickin' Switch. Guess what? Not available in America. I don't understand this.
Oh, trust me, I understand, Celes. I bought a PS Vita just for when Phantasy Star Online 2 was ported to North America. We see how that went.
That's okay. I bought a PlayStation 3 for Kingdom Hearts 3, so it's all good.